over-the-top costumes that fit into the different dance styles that she does, which emphasizes the ridiculousness of the situation.
Right.
And then you see her in the very simplistic with her band in the black costumes, which you immediately see that she's fits in, that's like her role, so you see her own style coming, and then when all her fans are in, it's just an ordinary everyday clothing that is juxtaposed with the complex costuming of the dancing to show that where she is comfortable dancing is when she's dancing ridiculously with her fans, with people she loves, rather than in these different styles.
Great. So do you feel like the costuming was integral to what Taylor Swift was trying to communicate?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's the whole point of the music video.
Okay, great. What are your guys' thoughts about costuming, maybe the role it played, or just observations in general? Did you like the costuming? Did you hate it? For you, Abby, was it hard to deal with all of the different costumes that were going on?
I thought it was fun.
It was fun. Okay, great.
Like it now?
So, do you feel like it helped?
Try to be different.
You don't have to try to be different from Hannah. It's okay if you agree.
Listen, it's okay if you disagree.
So, do you feel like, so you said it made it more fun. Do you feel like that helped with the entertainment value drawing you into this music video?
Yeah, I mean, if they hadn't, if she hadn't done what she did with the costumes, I think the music video would have been, like, very boring.
Boring. Okay. Erin, your thoughts?
Talking classes.
Well, when there's three people, we're gonna talk.
We all take the class together.
Yeah, I agree with Abby. Like, without the costumes, it would have been a pointless music video, and it made it more fun and visually pleasing, in my opinion.
Okay, great, thank you. So, keeping this in mind, the importance of costuming, particular to this video, what Taylor Swift is trying to do. What do you feel the role of costumes are in theater and film in general, as well as our everyday life? Like, I just want to hear your guys' first thoughts about that really broad, kind of sweeping statement or question.
Costumes are vital, at least in like shows, because it gives you like a lot of context
right,
to what's going on, and like time era and social status and job, everything basically.
Great. So we're already thinking about what clues it gives us into the environment, the context that's going on. Perfect. Thank you. Other thoughts about costumes?
When you said like in everyday life or whatever, do you just mean like the clothes people wear?
Yeah. So talk to me about that. How do you feel about terming our everyday clothes as costumes? Do you feel like that's true?
No, go for it.
You go.
No, I just don't think we put as much thought as costume designers do into.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the person.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us do.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. So that is something very specific there in the fact that we are not every morning sitting there drafting out something we're going to build or something that we're going to pull and being very specific with that. But I will venture to argue, and I'm not saying that this is a statement that is hard and fast, but I'd like for us to think throughout this lesson and for this moment as our everyday wear acting as costumes, in the sense that it provides an insight into maybe who we are, the context around our lives, things like that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So let's try to maybe step into that and explore that a little bit throughout this lesson and this unit that we're going to be going into. Are you okay?
Are you okay? It's me, man.
Disruptive students.
Okay, so just plowing on forward, we're going to take a look at some costumes, and the first few I know you're going to be familiar with, or at least I assume that most of you will be familiar with, and I want to talk about them a little bit. So,
Nice.
Do we all recognize our good friend Severus Snape?
Yeah.
Talk to me. Obviously, all of us here are aware of this character, know information about him. But I want to talk in terms of what his costume is doing for the portrayal of his character. What is it offering? offering?
So Harry Potter is a blend of contemporary and more early 20th century clothing.
Right.
So you see that blend here where it looks like something Stop me. I'm sorry my answers are thoughtful.
No, I love your answers. Thank you.
So
Hannah.
it could, parts of it could be seen in everyday life now, but it's more reminiscent of something like a professor or some like buddy in the past would have worn, so it gives a sort of like prestige and like overbearingness.
Overbearingness.
Yeah.
What about it gives you that feeling? Is it this
The
mixture?
high collar, the cape.
Color, the cape. Great. What else about maybe the color or the shape does it communicate for you guys?
It communicates that he's evil to me.
Evil. Why? Talk to me about that.
Because he's wearing all black.
All black.
And his hair's black.
Yeah.
It's very dark and there's no smile on his face. So just like the whole image.
Yeah, the whole image. And historically, within literature and theater, all these things, black is often associated with bad, right? Great. Abby, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's just like shows his personality, and that he's just kind of like a. Yeah.
That's a nice sound effect to encompass Severus Snape. Great. So let's do the same for Remus. So talk to me.
Yes,
Interesting thing, he's still clad in dark colors, maybe not completely black like Severus Snape. But what does that do for you? Look at the textures, the shape, maybe this idea of layering. What is it communicating?
Just like Abby said, for Severus, this one portrays his personality. He's more upbeat, friendly, more welcoming almost. The colors kind of draw you in.
Okay.
Instead of Severus, it kind of pushed you away.
So maybe the warmth with the characters more than his draws you in. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe what about the layering?
Haphazard, professorial.
Good, good. Abby, thoughts about this one? No?
I agree with you.
One thing that's really interesting to me is, sorry, what did you say?
And Hannah, we all agree with Hannah.
One thing that's interesting to me about his character that we know is that, from being familiar with his character, is that he's hiding some things. And so we have, even here we just see 3 layers there. So this idea of veiling. You okay? You okay? What's underneath. So we're going to quickly go through the next few ones. Our favorite character. What's her costume doing for her? What's it communicating? We have some grimacing.
It's supposed to get a visceral reaction from you because it's so over the top, but also like stodgy and mean, but I don't know at the same time. And
No, what were you gonna say?
oh, just they play with the color pink and like the costume changes throughout the movie where it's light pink at the beginning and it gets darker throughout it to also represent like this evilness like that Aaron was talking about.
But it's so interesting too that pink is not often associated with evil as black is, right? But they still employ this similar idea of dark colors getting darker, and this kind of jarring juxtaposition between the color of what we're normally associating pink with and the role it plays in this really awful character that I'm sure a lot of us dislike. Any other thoughts about this one?
I think like the kind of like over the top pink and like frilliness, it almost like brings this idea to our mind of like when something is like too like sweet or something that it's like to the point where it's like gross and like icky.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of reminds me of with her.
Yeah.
And she kind of like puts on this facade of like I'm like a good person or whatever, but like she's
Yeah.
icky.
It's
Yeah.
too much and it's gross, right? Thanks. Okay. Talk to me about Trelawney. Maybe, particularly I find the texturing interesting here in the costuming, right? What was that, Erin?
Well, it doesn't relate, but of a hobo,
Okay.
and I guess that is what she becomes. Oh, what? Is
What?
it? No, like she was gonna become a hobo.
Yeah,
When
no,
she gets kicked out of
Well,
Hogwarts.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It honestly fits her personality. She is a person who's all over the place, as you can tell by her wardrobe. Nothing matches. Nothing goes together.
Yeah.
Her hair's not done. She's the opposite of what was Lady in Pink's name?
Umbridge.
No, that's it. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, great, thank you. Do you guys have other observations you want to add?
I think the like, kind of like messiness almost brings this like authenticity to her that like you know that she's like being real with you, whereas with Umbridge it's so like, kind of like
Yeah.
I can't think of the word, but
Fake or
yeah, just
Yeah.
like
Well, that's interesting because we know that Harry doesn't particularly love this professor and feels that she is maybe not fabricating these things, but is kind of indulgent in the work she's doing. And so that's something interesting that you bring up, where there is this sense of her keeping it real and being honest, maybe to herself, but then you bring in context of other things, and it's interesting to grapple with when characterization gets a little more complicated, or how others view them, right? So we have a few more pictures left, but these are people you're unfamiliar with, at least I'm assuming, because I don't know who this is. Talk to me, this is more in context of this idea of everyday wear. What is it communicating? What do you know about this individual potentially from his costume or his outfit?
that money.
Money, okay, yeah.
Smart.
Smart. How come?
Glasses.
Glasses. A book. Yeah, so this idea of props too. What can they do? Props, if you will. Like you said, glasses are often associated with intelligence. Anything else about his personality, his likes, his dislikes?
He likes
Pretty
standing.
stylish.
Yeah. He likes standing out too, though. You can tell.
Yeah.
No one walks around like that normally.
Maybe likes the attention. Okay, what about her?
Basic.
Basic. How come?
Because she's just like a basic hoe.
Language.
So we see commonly what's associated with girls who are termed basic. So this is something that we see in our everyday life. Talk to me about what you know just on, not her, what you see around her, but just on her outfit, like season, context, what is going on around her.
It's warm.
It's
She's
warm.
in Greece.
What?
She's in Greece.
No,
Not-
not around her
Oh,
biggest.
shoot. I thought you said not.
But
like
you're
her
right.
costume.
It looks like she's in Greece, but
She's probably an Instagram influencer.
Instagram influencer. Okay, that's what we see a lot.
Yeah.
Great. What about him?
Basic.
Cool.
Athletic.
Can you talk to me specifically in terms of what he's wearing? So he's athletic. How can you tell that?
His tennis shoes.
Tennis shoes. Okay.
Those are
He likes.
They're tennis or Adidas.
He's also rich. He's got the brands.
Okay, so brand.
Brand four.
What that entails and that communicates. Great. Okay. And last, tell me about maybe her likes, dislikes. What do you think she would go out and do on a Saturday night? I don't know. Like what does she like to do based on her clothes?
Go to
with
concerts.
poetry reading.
Oh.
Poetry reading or concerts, both of which are kind of this artistic, stylistic choice, right?
She clubs.
Clubs. Okay, tell me what specifically about her outfit is telling you these things.
The tights, man.
The tights, okay. So all of this is really interesting in context of what we normally see. And if we were, not for some reason in context of everyday life what the styles are, this may not mean the same things to us, right? So that's something interesting to grapple with. Okay, so we talked about those a little bit kind of just off the top of our head, looking at these costumes. Talk to me about, just in these last few minutes, what elements fundamentally go into costuming do you think? Like, what are the tools? What is being considered to costume. Does that make sense?
Color.
Color. Great. So we talked a lot about color. If I was in a classroom, I would have a whiteboard and I would be writing these down. What else? Color. Some of these words I threw out as we were going through, maybe texture.
Layers.
Layers. Great. Silhouette. Silhouette meaning, what does silhouette mean to you guys?
It's the shape that it makes.
The shape that it makes. So that takes in consideration, do we have a cape that's trailing behind? Is it soft? Is it rigid? That also captures this idea of lines to the use of line. Is it curved? Is it rigid, right?
Maybe time period.
Time period, great, great. And so all of these things go into feed time period as well, right? So our silhouettes now look very different from our silhouettes from 1920s, right? Okay, let me make sure we're movement. So that kind of also ties in with silhouette, but how does the fabric move on the body? Also as well, how does the pieces move in consideration with each other? Pattern. Also kind of with texture, but a chaotic, messy pattern is going to communicate something very different from a very clean cut, solid pattern. Great. So yeah,